Hey, doctoral candidates, it's Dr. Kane Ellis from Defeat Your Dissertation. Today, I want to talk about the 6 reasons why you're stuck at ABD status. So, whether you're in the beginning stages and you're struggling to figure out your topic, or you've been stuck for months or years and haven't quite managed to finish your dissertation, there's good reason for that. And it's not because of your academic aptitude, it's not because you're lazy, it's not because you don't have the capacity to finish your dissertation. Really, it comes down to 6 things. So I want to share those 6 things with you today so that you can reflect on your own practices and your own processes and see what it is that you can do to overcome those obstacles. So let's jump right in and start talking about why writing a dissertation is difficult. So let's be honest that if it were easy, many more people would have a PhD. And in fact, less than 2% of the people in the world have a doctorate. So don't be punishing yourself. Don't be thinking that this should be easy or you can't imagine why you haven't finished. There is good reason. And actually, somewhere between 1/3 and 1/2 of doctoral students never actually finish their program and finish their dissertations. So that's dependent obviously upon which program that they're in, whether it's 1/3 or more near 1/2. However, either way, that's a really large percentage of people who intended to get a PhD that didn't manage to finish. And so I want to share the 6 reasons why you're stuck where you are and help you avoid being part of that percentage who ends up giving up on their academic dream. So I know that when I was working on my dissertation, that I really struggled at certain points, that it wasn't an easy process, that I was, like many of you, I was working full time and a part-time job. I was trying to have a life and still see my friends and my family and still have some downtime. And while that may seem impossible while you're working on a dissertation, it actually isn't. So let's jump right into the first reason why you may be stuck in the dissertation writing process, and that's vision. So, what do I mean by vision? I mean, do you have a clear idea of what your dissertation is supposed to look like? And I'm not talking about how your research is going to unfold and what results you're going to get and how you're going to analyze those findings. I'm not talking about all of that. I'm talking about, do you actually know the nuts and bolts of what your university expects for you to include in your dissertation? So, everything from if you have to have an abstract of a certain length, all the way through how your references are expected to be formatted. Do you know all of that content? Because if you don't, you're going to struggle along the way and be thrown off guard, and you might be going back and redoing work that you could have just done once, and it becomes so frustrating, and your dissertation is going to be frustrating along the way. That's just how it is. However, there are things that you can do to mitigate those unexpected obstacles, and one of them is having a clear vision of what it is that the content is. The other part of vision is knowing the processes involved. And you'd be surprised about all these little processes that you didn't know would occur along the way. And that's everything from knowing which secretary to submit your proposal request to, how to announce your proposal, how much time you have to give to your committee, whether you're allowed to have an outside committee member. So all these little things that might be standing in your way seem minute, but as they kind of gather up and accumulate, that it can become really frustrating and really disappointing. And when you pair that with actually writing your dissertation and developing your research topics or your research problems and questions, that you really don't need these things that really are manageable and these things that you could find out right from the very beginning. You don't need those standing in your way. So I would suggest that you start looking at what your university expects, have those conversations with the right people in your university, whether that's your advisor or the academic department chair, whoever it may be, that they probably have some of the answers that you need. The second main obstacle that many of us face while we're writing a dissertation is goal setting. And so if you're someone who feels really frustrated because you set these really high, lofty goals, like writing 40 pages this weekend or finishing your literature review by December, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment. That you really need to make sure that you are setting goals that are manageable and reasonable. And so instead of looking at these big goals, which are important sort of to keep in mind somewhere, but not to use those as benchmarks of success. So instead of doing that, you really need to set your goals into more of a daily objective or even a weekly objective of goals of varying strengths, varying sizes rather. And then you'll be able to start ticking those goals off. The next obstacle that I want to talk about today is organization. Writing a dissertation is so overwhelming because of the magnitude and also the depth and breadth that you're expected to unpack in your dissertation, that keeping it all organized can become so unwieldy and so difficult that I think many of us get stuck in the organization process. And fortunately, there are ways to better manage your organization and better ways for you to go about approaching your literature review and organizing all those resources and research articles and books and notes. And so that you could really streamline the process. And this is something that I get into in some other of my videos and some things that I get into on my website, defeatyourdissertation.com, that you can check out and find some resources to help you if you're feeling overwhelmed by your organization. The next obstacle that I want you to think about is time management. How is it that you're organizing your time? Are you trying to dedicate 5, 6, 7, 8 hours on a weekend to your dissertation? Are you trying to work on your dissertation whenever you can squeeze it in, whether it's 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there? On Thursdays, you work on it for an hour, and then on Saturdays, you work on it for 2 hours. Then you probably are struggling to make any progress. And the reason for that is that your dissertation needs time 5 to 7 times a week, a consistent amount of time, so that you can kind of automate the process and automate those goals that I was talking about so that you start making progress. And I think one of the reasons that people leave their doctoral programs is because they don't feel like they're making any progress. But if you start working on your dissertation, even if it's for 1 hour at the same time every day, for 5 days, or 5 to 7 days out of the week, just 1 hour, you will start making progress and you will start feeling accomplished and you'll start realizing that, wow, I got through half of my methodology already, or I'm so close to submitting my research topics and my research questions to my advisor for approval, that you'll start feeling like you're getting some forward momentum and that you're really starting to tick things off of the list. If you just randomly work on it here and there, you're not going to be able to sustain that, and you're not going to be able to commit to every Saturday working on it for 5 hours. Then more than likely, you're going to have these highs and lows of like, wow, I managed to write up 10 articles, and then you do nothing for a month. And then it's really hard to circle back and jump back into your writing. The next obstacle is decision making. And I think as people who are very high up in our academic careers, that we feel like our research has to be perfect. The biggest piece of advice I want to give you when it comes to decision making is to really think about whether option A is better or just different than option B. Like I said, I think that we want to make everything really perfect, but honestly, you can look back at any piece of writing that you've done in graduate school, and there's always room for improvement. And that's going to be the same for your dissertation. There's always going to be room for improvement. And your advisor should likely tell you if option A is going to kill your dissertation and you'll never get approval at the end of your defense. That your advisor really has that job and that responsibility to make sure that the key decisions that you make are the ones that are going to be fruitful for your dissertation. Other than those decisions, sometimes it just really doesn't matter what it is that you ultimately choose. So give yourself a little bit of a break and try to make it so that options that you're choosing are really easier on you. And then the other thing that I think many doctoral students struggle from is that we think that this has to be the pinnacle, ultimate, wonderful, life-changing piece of research, when in actuality, the purpose of a dissertation is to be a final exam for your doctoral program, nothing more. So just like you had final exams as a high school student, as an undergrad, as a graduate student, just like you took your comps or your qualifying exams prior to your PhD, ABD status, that it really isn't anything more than that. It's just a final exam. So keep that in mind that you're not striving for perfection. You're striving for success in your doctoral program. You're striving to move from ABD status to defending your dissertation to walking across that graduation stage. Finally, the last obstacle that many of us face in writing a dissertation is getting feedback. That writing a dissertation can be super lonely. And sometimes you feel like you don't know whom to ask or when to ask your advisor or how to ask your advisor or if you should send something or not send something. And this is a relationship that you really need to foster and make sure that you respect, because at the end of the day, your advisor is going to be the person who stands in your way or holds your hand to that graduation stage. And so you want to make sure that you have a really awesome relationship with your advisor. And I have some videos and some resources as well on my website about how to improve your relationship with your advisor if you're kind of struggling or not getting the feedback that you need. As we come to a close today, I want to remind you that writing a dissertation is difficult. Otherwise, many more people would actually have a PhD. So you're doing the right thing by trying to find resources and support for this process. And if you have any other needs, you always can reach out to me. You can check out my other materials and resources and videos on defeatyourdissertation.com and find out a little bit more about how to succeed and how to overcome these obstacles. Thank you.